Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Between Two Layers, where we are breaking down everything that is happening in the Layer 2 ecosystem. I'm Reilly, of course, joined by Robbie Ferguson, co-founder and president of Immutable X. Hey, Robbie.
Hi, Carly. Pleasure to be here.
And we are joined by a very special guest, Yang Adija. Yang is the SVP of Digital League Business Operations, Growth, and Innovation at Turner Sports. That's quite the title. I want you to explain to me what that means, but I want to give folks a little sense of just what we're going to get into in this conversation, which is Turner has been really ahead of its peers, I think, in many ways when it comes to the digital landscape in general, but certainly Web3 in particular. And I'm not sure people really know that. So we're going to talk about everything that Turner has done up to this point, why you've been leading the charge. I think for folks out there who are in the business world or who are business leaders in their own companies, this is going to be an incredibly helpful conversation to listen to how you all have strategically thought about this. You have announced your partnership with Immutable X, so we're going to talk about how that came to be and why Immutable over all the options that are out there in the blockchain landscape today. And we'll have some fun. So before we dive into all that good stuff, I do have to say it's a new podcast, folks. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on a podcast app right now, go ahead and subscribe, show the love so you can be first to hear all of these great conversations. And with that, Yang, explain to me what your title means. Are you solely focused on Web3? Like, what are you up to these days?
Well, first, thank you for having me. I am excited to be on your second episode. And I think we were joking before. I think I should do a POAP so that I can, use this as a collectible sometime in the future, and just as you continue to grow and expand your podcast. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We do need to do, Robbie, we want to do between two layer POAPs and give them to meaningful guests who have some sort of significance. So that's
definitely,
that's
and all the audience too, for sure.
Yeah, for the early audience who listen. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Aria's on this call, lurking on this call. Aria, we're gonna brainstorm this post call for our first guest.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know the title is a mouthful, and sort of walk you through what I do over at Turner Sports and what that means. I am the Senior VP of Digital League Business Operations, and really that means that I head up and work with our Digital League partners, the NBA and NCAA as example, as our two major league partners on the digital side, and I'm responsible for the business operations for those leagues. And what that looks like for us is that we build and work with our league partners to develop apps, websites, their digital experience. We are partnered with them to deliver that, and so many of our sports fans that are listening and watching this now may have been engaged with the NBA app, with the NCAA March Madness app, and those sort of things. And we've been partnered with them for years to build those out. And my team is right there and responsible for that. And in addition to that, what falls under my purview is growth and innovation. And this is across Turner Sports. And this is, Turner Sports is a wide organization that includes, as I mentioned, our league partners in NBA and NCAA, but also Bleacher Report and NBA on TNT and some of our linear broadcasts. And so my responsibility there is to help us to think about the future and how do we really deliver fan-focused experiences that are leaning into the future of where and how our fans will engage with sports. And fortunately for us, we've been able to do that within the early stages of blockchain Web3, and fortunate enough to be able to test and continue to do that along the way. And I would say, to your question, long way of me finally getting to your question about whether or not Web3 is my sole focus. It isn't my sole focus just because there is a wide variety of things that we have to do in terms of sports engagement, but it is one of those things in which I think is sort of, eating, the sports experience. It's starting out in which people know it as sort of collectibles and NFTs, if you would. But where we see it going is that this will be a foundational piece of how fans will engage with sports and that will spread across both the sort of their live sports experience, their linear experience, as well as their digital experience. And we're excited about that and happy to be sort of on the forefront of trying to make that come through.
Awesome, Yang. And I wanted to ask, I mean, you guys have been leading the way digitally for a very long time now. And so I wanted to pose a question that many brands have had to face, which is how has your audience received sort of this progression into NFTs and this NFT news?
Look, I think there's a few things. I mean, one is that we, Turner Sports, Bleacher Report, we've sort of always been on the forefront of trying to lead in terms of new technology. In Web 1, when it was the read-only web, we built websites for our sports leagues. And so we got to understand, okay, well, what does that transition mean? How do we continue to keep an audience while developing a new platform? We then went to Web 2, which is a little bit more social. We were again on that leading edge and building those platforms for our league partners. And we're seeing the similar thing in Web 3 or sort of this, the NFT space. And to be honest with you, obviously not all of our fans are ready to move over. Our fans stretch from older viewers to younger, engaged fans that are digital. And if we look at them less monolithic, but more of trying to address them where their needs are, then we see much better engagement and interaction. And we're sort of really excited about things that we're going to look to do later this year, as well as heading into 2023, around creating that fan engagement that meets the fans where they are and provides value to them through their sports experience.
We'll definitely dive a lot into the fan engagement theory that you put forward, because I think it applies to so many businesses within sports and then even outside the world of sports and your distribution models with linear TV, which I think you alluded to a little bit earlier. But really take us through this history here. Robbie was saying you guys have been leading at the forefront digitally for many years. I think, did I just hear you say like you helped, it was like the NBA set up their first website? Like this has been very core to the ethos of Turner for a long time. How do you create that culture within an organization?
So yes, so we were early in addition to delivering a top-notch production, linear cable shows that we do within sports. We began building sites and apps for our league partners, which included the NBA. At the time, it also included PGA, NASCAR. We were early in terms of delivering that for them as well. And fortunately for us, the Turner Bleacher culture has been one that was born out of innovation and entrepreneurship. Turner itself was a sort of a maverick within the space, and we've always tried to keep that ethos within the organization. Now we are a lot larger than we were then, and so it certainly is. It's difficult, just to be frank. It's not one of those things that everyone's running around talking about, okay, what do we innovate next? And there are lots of failures and times where we have to say, hey, this isn't working. We are fortunate that our leadership within sports has been executive leadership that's been willing to take small bets and then lead those to larger bets around directions to grow. We've also been fortunate that we've had the history of success in terms of building sites in Web 1 and then social in Web 2, that it's led to our growth. And so, giving our team the space to make mistakes and really feel comfortable being innovative when we don't know what's going to come next, or we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And I think we've been fortunate to be in that environment and continue to foster that environment.
It'd be remiss to not mention your guys' involvement with Top Shot. And so, Yang, I wanted to get your opinion on, most people don't realize just how deep the relationship between you guys and Top Shot was. So maybe you could talk us through how that started, how that evolved, and what your learnings you kind of took away and are applying to this might be.
Sure. I'll probably start even before Top Shots, just because that leads into how we got there. And I think
And can I say that that's what's like, you're like, Top Shot's like one of the earliest things in the space by many people's like awareness. Dapper was so early, and you're like, let's start before the early players were even in here, which I feel like is important, because that was what was so striking to me in like doing research for this episode, was like, hell, you guys were on this in like 2017 experimenting. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'll finish your thought,
No.
but I want to highlight.
No, and I appreciate that. I think it's been exciting for us. I think one of the things, my history in it, I was into blockchain and really interested in the space in sort of 2015, and was diving into how can we utilize blockchain for entertainment and entertainment company. And originally I pitched an idea, and oddly enough, we had an innovation competition within our organization, and I pitched an idea within the organization to use blockchain as a DRM, a digital rights management tool. And the objective was that, as a large organization, it's hard for us to utilize small, or engage with small films, because it just didn't make sense for us to do all the multitude of rights that come along with that. The writers, the directors, the actors that may get rights for that for very small films. And the idea was that if you put that all in the blockchain, that everyone would automatically get paid out with smart contracts, and we would not have to worry about that. And therefore we can then share in the distribution of these smaller films and create a marketplace or ecosystem for that. And so that was the original pitch of what I started in 2015. Sadly enough, or actually it was still good, but I came in second in that innovation competition. And I continue to think about blockchain and how to evolve that, and pivoted to NFTs in, I think it was early 2018, late 2017. Obviously we heard about CryptoKitties and what happened there on the Ethereum chain. And so that was where I started to click around, this would be great for us to do applications against sports. And I began pitching the idea of utilizing NFTs for sports, and how do we create engaging sporting events or environments or interactive experiences that can utilize NFTs. And one of the things that we started with was to make a horse racing game. And, so you would have NFTs of horses, and you could race them and take advantage of them. It got some excitement in a small group. I had the ear of our executive that was allowing us to experiment with that. But I quickly realized, our expertise isn't in horses, and there's greater applications around sports more broadly. And I think as we were testing this out, because of our relationship with the NBA, they heard, and I was talking to them about what we were doing, and they were having conversations around, at that time, the very early stages around Top Shots. And so we began sharing notes, and I began telling them about what at the time, Ethereum was the biggest space around that. I did know the team that was, building Top Shots and then pitching to the NBA. And I had conversations with them about how do we position this to make this work? What are the things that we would need? What rights would we need to give? As many of the listeners and viewers may not know, since we are a joint venture with the NBA on their digital properties and some of the video, some of those rights were ours as well. And so we needed to make sure that we were part of the negotiation around that. And so we were partnering with them and talking through how this would work and what would be the ways of launching and having, the NBA Top Shot. And so we were there in the early stages, hopefully providing some sage or sound advice for the NBA, while at the same time testing and building in other experiences that we were looking to build and leading to where we are today.
2015, so that's when you started. Robbie, does he have you beat? When were you first dabbling in blockchain?
Look, I think I bought my first Bitcoin in 2014, but it's not a race, Yang.
No, no.
Even if I did start before him, he would have lapped me anyway. He's doing great things with Immutable, so I'm glad that we are now able to partner with what Robbie's doing on Immutable. So
fair enough. Let's let's talk, and this then maybe leads us into the Immutable partnership more specifically, though there's a number of things about Turner that I want to understand better. This NFT as a fan engagement tool, this really is the core of your theory and your philosophy here. I'd love to hear you really flesh that out, and maybe in the context of so many people criticize NFTs being like, there's no point, you could do this in Web 2. Why is this really fundamentally different in your opinion?
And so I tell our team this all the time, that what we want to do is focus on driving value to our fans. That is sort of our North Star, our keys. What we are producing, does it drive value for them? And value can come in a number of different ways. And I'm very careful in terms of that, because I don't want people to think, hey, value just means I spend $1 now and that's going to turn me into a millionaire tomorrow. What it means is that, it allows a fan to engage, whether it's fun, whether it's economic, or whether it's, I am now able to create something. I'm able to create within an ecosystem and know that there's providence over what I create that can lead to it being more, because I'm able to really lean in my ingenuity into something without it just being in the ether, or being infinitely duplicated, or it being owned by Turner Sports or some other central entity. And that has profound effects, because I think if you think about it, and I always go back to my team and talk about the U.S. economy was built on the ability for property rights and ownership. And it wasn't because they invented money. It wasn't because they invented trade. It wasn't because they invented, farming. Those things were well invented before the U.S. Capitalist economy came. The ability to have ownership and know that my ingenuity into building what I own and that provenance of what I own, I can then extract value from that, allows users to then lean in and be much more innovative and creative around what they do, which then helps the complete ecosystem. And that's what we're hoping to build within our space, is allowing that to happen for our fans. And so tying that directly into, okay, as a large company, what does that mean? And, at the end of the day, we produce things, and how does that drive to our fans? What that means to me and what it means to us is that we want to be able to create things that our fans love and enjoy, and that they can participate in a meaningful way. And as a media company, when sort of the internet came about, the creators' value in a digital form began to get really devalued. You can see that creators would create, whether it was music, and then music went from selling from $15 a pop to below 99 cents. And what that did was, it was because you didn't know who owned something. It was infinitely copyable. You couldn't really create a space in which creators had the ability to really create and have that value stay with a particular digital item that they had. And what we want to be able to do is open that up for our creators, Turner as a creator, to be able to do that and engage with our fans. And the other thing is that NFTs, or this digital assets and community, allows itself to, is that you see that users become much more, sort of feel much more engaged with a project or product, because they know that, hey, I added value to this, or I own this. And so there's a lot more stickiness and a lot more willingness for fans to participate, that we're excited about.
How do you think this opens up sort of new monetization models for Turner, that, and how does that impact your relationship with your fans?
So what we're looking to do is that, how we see it is, the more that we're able to give our fans the ability to participate and gain value by the value that they put in, the larger the ecosystem becomes for us. And so rather than where the current model is, we create something, we exchange that for monetary value, And that's where the relationship ends, or maybe the relationship extends to me extracting also your data so that I can, next time I create something again, I can tell you, hey, I want to sell you this thing again. Rather than having it that sort of one way, if the environment is that, hey, we've created something, you can add to it and then hopefully add to the environment in which you are participating in, and also extract value from that because you've added value into the ecosystem. That's a greater place for them to stay. We don't have to tell them, hey, come back. They're like, hey, no, this is my home. I am staying here. I love to be here. And then that also creates additional revenue streams for both us and our users as well. One of the analogies that I like to use is that if you just think about renters and homeowners, when you think about a neighborhood that's full of renters, and hopefully I'm not defaming any renters, obviously I was a renter as well, but if you think about neighborhoods full of renters versus neighborhoods full of owners, the renter, if someone drops something in the neighborhood or litters in the neighborhood, may be upset, but they're not like, you're ruining my property value. Let me make sure that we do the right things to upkeep this property value, versus a homeowner is going to really be invested in that community, that neighborhood. They want to know about the crime. They want to know about the schools. They want to know about, what's happening that increases the value of that neighborhood. And we want to be one of those neighborhoods where our fans are part of it, and that they are invested in seeing it grow, and that we can help them be partners with them.
I would love to get a little specific. We're talking right now is sort of abstractly about some of this stuff. So I might ask you a little bit about Blockleets, which was your first, or at least the first foray into all this that I'm familiar with for you, but also specific in terms of, I think I've heard you talk previously, or we mentioned this earlier, like how linear TV might come into this. Like I'm so fascinated by this concept of NFTs becoming really multimedia. Because right now they live on my computer screen and like a little bit on my phone. But I feel like they're going to be in my TV watching experience at some point and my movie watching experience. And you have some really interesting thoughts on that. So can you walk us through that on a specific level?
Yeah, I'll start with the Blockleet game and talk about a little bit what that's about. And then I'll dive into there's some really interesting things that we're hoping to do later this year with our on-air experience that I'll touch on. I can't go into great specificity there because I want to make sure we hold some for later, but I'll talk about that a bit. And in terms of Blockleet games, we have a golf game that's out there. It was early in the App Store. We had our relationships with the app stores and we were able to get it in there. Essentially, it's a golf game that is the golfers are NFTs, so you're able to buy the NFTs and get golfers that are at a certain level, and then you're able to level up those golfers, those NFTs, as you play. And within the game, you also have we're going to have golf clubs and golf balls that will be NFTs that users can buy and sell and trade. And you'll be in an environment in which you are competing with others and having fun and really elevating your game, and you're winning prizes. We also have prize winnings for that as well. That's a really exciting environment for us to test. It was a great testing ground for us to figure out, okay, well, how do users behave when NFTs are involved? What are the triggers for higher value NFTs that are in there? Do we need to have it so that the NFTs just appreciate in value, or are there other ways that engagement works? The big thing that we were looking to do and are going to be doing over the next few, knock on wood, weeks here, if we get our roadmap is still intact, is that we created pro shops, so users can come in and own their own pro shop. They can sell their own golf balls and golf clubs to other users that are playing within the game, and the proceeds from their pro shop goes directly to them. And we obviously take a piece of that, but it's mainly their ingenuity of figuring out selling golf balls and golf clubs and other things that will eventually be within that pro shop. And the way that works for us is that you'll have users that are playing the sort of what we call the raw materials to produce these golf balls and goods within the pro shop come from other users playing the game. And so you have people join your pro shop. They then play the game that earns them credits that allows the pro shop owner to create golf balls, and other goods for the pro shop. The proceeds from that then get shared between the pro shop owner, as well as all of the participants within the pro shop. And so there's incentive for those who are playing to play more, because they then drive value to the pro shop owner and themselves, and then they sell within the ecosystem, and then the pro shop owners get value from that as well. And so we're looking to launch that hopefully in the next few weeks here. And so this was a great area for us to really test to see what's the user behavior, what's that engagement there, and we'll be transporting a lot of that learning to one of the next ideas we have coming around a larger IP that we'll be doing with Immutable. And then so to answer your question, just in terms of like, how do I think about that holistically around all parts of our sports ecosystem? One of the things that we would love to do, and I'll even just stay with the golf one, is that we also have the match. We would love to create experiences in which something happens within the match while you're watching the match, and that adds points to you and your ecosystem, and that can be done easily with QR codes. We'll have things that, and for those who don't know the match, so yes.
I was about to chime in with that. I'm Googling here on the side, being like, am I the idiot?
So the match for us is it's essentially a celebrity golf tournament that we do. Usually it's 2-on-2. We had Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, you've said the magic word in my household. Josh Allen is the thing, the guy up and watch the sun sets and rises.
Yes. So
okay, very cool.
We bring this, in that one we had the celebrities play. We would love to. We haven't done it as yet, but those are opportunities for us to link into sort of a live sporting experience. Maybe if you watch enough of the match, you get opportunities to earn golf clubs, or maybe even creating certain kind of golf clubs that are match golf clubs. And so if you win in our match tournament, you get to go to the live match tournament. So we're thinking about simple ideas like that we can integrate with some of our live experiences. And we have some others that we're thinking about as well.
It's like, could you see a world where, so I have actually watched the match then, because I watched that game. It was recent, right? The Aaron Rodgers. I just like to listen to them shit talk. It's very fun to me, and so I just imagine this world where the stakes are so much higher as we watch content, because now it's almost like an additional layer of gambling. I've bought the Josh Allen NFT or whatever, and then he lost. And so that NFT automatically gets burned. Just these ways in which the thing that we have in our pocket on our phone, the NFTs that we're holding, are being directly affected by something that I'm watching on my screen. And in this world of constantly upping the ante, I just think this becomes a no-brainer of that's just a fun extra way to gamble. And then if I own the Aaron Rodgers one, or whatever, he wins, it stays and it boosts in rarity or something.
Yeah, look, I mean, we are excited about the possibilities and trying to make sure that we think about this correctly. And so we have some things of some other properties that we're looking to work with at the this year, in which you will watch, and people can imagine just what we have on air. You will watch one of our shows, and in that show we will prompt you to do some things that will lead to NFTs and opportunities for engagement with NFTs later this year. So we're excited about that.
When I was first excited about NFTs, I wasn't even picturing this stuff. So this is the stuff where I'm most of the world has no idea this is happening yet. And it's why they're so dismissive of it, because they really do not get how this is going to touch every corner of the way we enjoy entertainment.
And we think hopefully it'll be so second nature that people aren't thinking about the, sort of the technology of it. They're thinking about the value of what the NFTs or their experience brings.
How does Toner think about old business models versus new business models. Some would say this threatens incumbent business models. What's your overall take? It's pretty frontier for you guys to be doing this.
I think so. One of the things that I try to be a student of sort of technology history and how things things evolve, and I don't think it's going to sort of replace old business models. I think those old business models will still be there, and you'll have opportunities. And we are embedded in the ad business, we are embedded in subscription business, and those will continue to be there. What I think this does is it extends it, and it creates a different way for us to really engage with the fans, but monetize separately. And some of these things may still lean into some of the old business models, but this creates that extension in which I really am a proponent of the fans being able to participate in this in a way that their value that they add to this ecosystem dictates. So if I am extremely creative and extremely, inventive, and I add value, and they add value into our sports ecosystem, why shouldn't they participate with us in sort of, taking some of that value with them? They're growing the space with us. I think it's only right that they share in that with us, and I think that leads to a different model of how we monetize and how we grow the business.
What do you see being some of the most valuable third-party contributions or additions to the economies being?
Yeah, that's a great question. One is certainly just creative art, and and I say that in a when I think about one of the things that we'll talk about is that we are building a game, and we're looking to do an interactive, engaging game. And so if those who are creative can create new game experiences that makes the game exciting or makes the game more challenging, that is like so exciting to me for a fan to be evolving that. As an example, our golf game, we'll imagine a fan comes in and designs a course that's more challenging than the course that we have, and people are really excited and want to play in that course. That's adding value to our game experience that we may not have thought of, or may not have designed. But I also think about it in terms of I love the idea of the composable NFT or the evolving NFT, and allowing it to have complicated DNA to it, because what that does is allow multiple combinations of what the ending NFT can be, but it will be designed by users coming in and creating. And so as a poor example, let's assume I had 3 different NFTs, and if I combine 2 of them, it creates a fourth. But if I combine sort of all 4 in a different way, in a different timing, in a different setting, it creates a 6th one that's so different. And these things are things that we might not think about individually, or we may be on a single path, but if we open it up to our audience and they start thinking about it, that opens up to sort of multiple paths of what can be discovered.
It seems like there is a convergence of media, sports, entertainment, movies with gaming and interactive content. And interactive content is embedding media. Media is becoming fundamentally interactive, and they're all going to end up in what will probably be this indeterminate lines between them. You'll watch a sports match and you'll instantly be able to play a game. You'll be watching a stream of your favorite game, and you'll instantly be able to port that content into whatever kind of media you are the biggest fan of. I wanted to throw that your way, and how Turner kind of thinks about that.
That is part and parcel to how we think about it for some of the games that we're looking to develop next. Our game that we're building has obviously a live sports experience with that. We would love to see our users, or players within our game, our fans in the game, that they're playing the game and then they get an advantage in the live experience. Maybe that's like, I'll call it front row seats in that live experience. or you've gone to a bunch of these live experiences. You were then, because of the ticketing, you're airdropped something into your gaming experience, and then that gaming that allows you to play within that game, or something happened in that live experience. If you were there, whether it's live or watching it on or on air, and you do something that enables your asset within the game experience to do something special within the game as well. Like, those are the kind of things that we want to see that are effortless between our fans experience, because we don't believe that fans live in one experience or the other. They live in all of them.
I think it's very interesting what you say around, hey, if you're at the match, you can have some experience or impact or upgrade to your NFTs. And to me, there's a very interesting opportunity there for third-party economic value, which is, a fan can say, collect a whole bunch of NFTs that represent, some collectible or some thesis they have, some sort of sports star they think is going to go particularly well, and then create their own value for people who may be attending that event. And then suddenly their portfolio kind of goes up in value. And so you have these third-party incentives for people to be generating their own types of value for players.
I was just going to comment that this feels to me like exactly what we need in this space, because it's actually going to be fun. It's getting people into the ecosystem because they want to be participating in the back and forth between what they're watching on the screen, et cetera. When you think strategically about rolling this out, are you going to say, like, these are NFTs, or are you almost going to try and avoid that landmine by just being like, here's this fun, cool new experience and way you can engage with live sports?
I would love to also just touch a little bit on what Robbie said as well, in that yes, we're actually banking on that, that there's a third party that's coming in and saying, hey, because although we are trying to be the catalyst for a lot of this, I don't think we grow our ecosystem as large as we think it can get without the third parties being able to participate in it. And so we are hoping that that's what happens, is that it's so robust. And some of those third parties might be our own. It might be Bleacher Report. It might be Warner Brothers. It might be some of the, but it may be even extended beyond that. And so we think that that's going to happen. When it will happen, also depends on how robust and everything else that's going on. Carly, to your point about, will we lead with NFTs, or will we say, hey, these NFTs, or, hey, this is just fun? I think the key for us is, one thing I've said is that we want to get the understanding of this directly into the bloodstream of our fans. We don't want them to have to worry about, figuring out, okay, well, what does NFT mean? And, particularly for those fans that are not crypto native, per se, we want them to immediately start understanding that value. And then as that value comes in, they understand, okay, wow, I own this thing. Oh, this is what an NFT was? Oh, that's great. Now I can also do other things with it. And part of that is, obviously the environment in which we're in, particularly within gaming and some of these things, NFT has, could mean a number of different things to different people. But that's sort of always been our objective, was to try to deliver the understanding of what the value is, and, how fun it is and what they're getting from it, and how, participating in this will get them either closer to the sport they love, closer to the game they love, closer to the the athlete, and, allow them to really be a participant.
It is very refreshing to see, and you say you're a student of tech history, Yang, which I think is very clear in the approach that Turner is taking, because I think you're truly embracing not just the name but the spirit of what NFTs and Web3 can do for fans, which is how can it enable composability, how can it enable economic empowerment that's still business model aligned. Like, as you said, this is an extension of what you guys are building, but there are a lot of brands in this space just dumping expensive luxury NFTs on fans, and essentially viewing it as another form of IP licensing, like another form of merchandise.
Right.
Slap your brand on something. So I just wanted to say, that's part of the reason we were really motivated to work with you guys, and I think it's one of the very few major companies in the space thinking this way.
Yeah, look, I think I would love to say that it comes from pure brilliance, but I don't know if it does necessarily. I think one of the things, they say like fighter makes the opponent makes the fight. It's like we're in a position in which Turner Sports, we are not IP owners per se. Yes, we have relationships with the NBA and some of the other sports rights, but we didn't create the NBA. We don't own those sports rights. So it was a little bit harder for us. The low-hanging fruit for us wasn't just to do a licensing deal and, create, expensive things. So we needed to go a step deeper and really understand what the value is that this brings. And so fortunately for us, we think that has benefited us because now, although we weren't able to do sort of the big money grab, in the beginning, we are able to build something that we feel is much more engaging and lasting for our fan base because we want to understand the value that this will drive to our fans.
I want to get a little technical here. Blockleets was on the Flow blockchain. You obviously have a long-standing partnership with Dapper, but now you're really getting into the Ethereum ecosystem and launching upcoming things with Immutable. I'd love to understand how you've thought about that, how you've approached what chains you build on, and how you're approaching it moving forward.
As I may have mentioned, we originally built the first iteration of the Blockleet game. It was built on Ethereum. And this was when Ethereum, even at that time, it wasn't all that cheap, but it was very inexpensive. But we, like everyone else, we realized that this is not sustainable. Fortunately for us, we had a relationship with Dapper, and then we decided to build on Flow. Our reason for moving is that we still have a great relationship with Dapper and the Flow team. We are looking to continue to extend out, and we love the Ethereum ecosystem. And it was fortunate for us that companies like Immutable are really leading in this space around making it less expensive, are also mindful of the environmental impact that this has. And, to be frank, Immutable is they're one of the leaders in the space in terms of gaming. And we think that interactive gaming in the space is a door, or a gateway drug, if you would, into really opening up a lot more within the ecosystem. And we wanted to be partnered with someone that was going to be there with us to be able to deliver against sort of that larger vision that we're thinking about.
One of my favorite conversational topics that I've talked about on a couple podcasts I've done, I think Robbie and I have talked about it before, is this really existential question about the space, which is, will ETH ultimately become dominant if it scales the way that IMX is planning to help it scale, simply because of the tremendous network effects? And if you no longer have like the TPS problem, that's where everyone's going to want to be. Or will we end up in this omni-chain world where Flow will bridge to IMX, or it'll be its own ecosystem that will continue thriving, or not to pick on Flow, but any of these, right? You go to Solana, et cetera. Do you have an opinion on this? Is the decision to go with IMX a statement about this broader question?
So yes. Hey, look, I think part of it is that we understand the network effects that come with Ethereum, and we wanted to make sure that we were participating in that. And we think that IMX was well positioned to continue to help that grow and be in a place to allow us to take advantage of that while being, cost efficient and responsible in terms of environmentally responsible. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I don't know, if there's going to be multi-chains. What I do think in terms of our theory is that, the core chain of Ethereum and the layer twos, particularly Immutable, of how they are building that out, will be a major player in that space. We feel that although there's a lot of talk about interoperability across chains, we think that people will develop where they see others developing, and that will, that network effect will have, communities want to set up there. And then it just makes sense where you don't have to constantly have to change over to another ecosystem to make that happen. And we want to be in that ecosystem where we think it's very vibrant.
I wanted to draw a parallel there, Yang, which is you were talking about how your approach to the space was guided by your incentives, which is you don't directly own IP, but instead you have to actually build meaningful business models that help players rather than just, slap it on a cup or a merchandise equivalent of an NFT. I think a very similar story happened here at Immutable, which is when we were looking at building this scaling platform, we had the incentives of leveraging the network effects of Ethereum. And the reason that everyone, I think, before us ended up building an L1 competitor was that was the only way that you could kind of pitch that was what VCs thought would be a competitive business model back then. There was no way to capture your own sort of captive network effects. And I think that by the time layer 2s came out and zero knowledge rollups, it was really understood to be, hey, look, there's going to be a couple of dominant players in the ecosystem. Ethereum's going to be one of them. Instead of competing, why don't we help them scale? And again, that same incentive to just deliver the best result to the end player led to our kind of technical architecture choices.
That's right. It makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Robbie, I wanted to ask you, I'm assuming you're aware of this, but I feel like Immutable has a reputation in the space as being picky. Like like you guys are selective about your partners in many ways. And maybe you want to refute that or say something to that. But I'm curious, what drew you to Turner?
One is, look, we're completely permissionless, and our platform can be built on by anyone. We couldn't stop them if we wanted to. And I think that's good. We want to build an open and ridiculously easy platform for anyone to build an NFT game or business. And the reason that we invest so hard in APIs is as this business matures and it goes from 200 odd kind of businesses looking at it to thousands to tens of thousands, you cannot have a business that relies on hundreds of integration experts and smart contract developers in order to allow people from the Web 2 world to build. It has to just be, hey, I'm using very, very simple APIs. I can do exactly what I've done in Web 2, but now I'm making sure it's secure, decentralized, safe, and has robust economics. That's the problem that we kind of solve. When it comes to partners that we work very closely with, that we'll invest a lot of time in from kind of the customer success side, from our publishing side, absolutely. It's going to be a hit-driven space. And ultimately, the things we look at is, what is the company, if they're from Web 2 in particular, what is their commitment to Web 3? Is this just a dabble, or are they here for the long term? And what you'll notice we don't do a whole ton of is profile picture projects, short-term volume. There are some really exciting ones. I'm a huge fan of, for instance, Bored Apes and the cult. They're essentially DAOs and machines that are moving, but anything that is focused on short-term volume, we're not interested in. We're interested in long-term businesses where we can grow these economies over time and work deeply with the companies to make big hits. Because we're not interested in another sort of, $100 million volume thing in a few months and it peters off. What we're interested in is, how do we build massive economies with companies who are here for the long run? And everything, we know in gaming it's hit driven, right? Like the biggest 10 games make more money than the next 100. The same thing is going to happen in Web3 space. It's going to be the key pioneers who understand truly what will deliver value, what's exceptional economics, and what will kind of be around for the long term.
Yang, have you all started development on your projects with IMX at this point?
Yes, we have. Yep.
So I'm curious because I feel like what you hear about Flow is the language Cadence.
Yes.
Robbie, you might even know. Like Cadence is so easy to build on. And again, I'm not trying to make some sort of direct comparison here, but I'm curious if you have thoughts on what it's been like building on IMX, coming from a place like Flow where it's made super easy. Has it been like a comparable experience?
Yeah, in fairness on this one, so Cadence has been great, Flow has been great for us to work on. We started building our project we haven't started to code onto Immutable quite yet, just because we are working out the sort of what the structure of the project looks like. There's a lot of pre-planning work that we're working with the Immutable team to make sure, okay, well, this is how we want this to roll out. What does this mean in terms of like, how should we write, what should be on, what do we need to have on on chain, and what doesn't need to be on chain. And so we're doing a lot of that work. But just from what our conversations, I think it's comparable. It's not difficult for us to, build on Immutable. In fact, I think here's where I'll sort of let a little bit out. It's in fact easier to a point that it's a little bit too easy for us because we've dived in fully in terms of like really understanding coding and everything else. I think what Immutable did was they made APIs, and we were like, well, where's the, the coding for this? And it was like, no, you don't need that. You can just do this. With some of the projects that we're doing, we are then pulling up the veil and writing a little bit more directly or creating ways to have it write a little bit more directly. But it's so easy that that was a little bit of a thing that we were like, well,
you're like, I'm overprepared.
Right, exactly,
like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
I studied way too hard for this
That's
test. And now I'm disappointed that the test isn't harder. Wow. I mean, that's impressive.
But I think that bodes well, for what they've created there, because you'll have a number of, I'll call it Web 2, I'll call it, media companies that will come in that have no interest in coding, don't even want to see, they just want to know, hey, I can do this and deliver. I have my team write to your API, and then that's really simple and easy for them.
I'm going to ask another maybe shilly immutable question because it's too awkward if Robbie has to ask it. But I genuinely want to know, like, why immutable over Polygon or ZK Sync, or I don't know. I don't really know. They feel like they haven't really launched anything by way of NFTs, but
yeah. So I'll dive as well. I'll get a little techie, even though I'm not techie about it. Immutable had the security that was important to us of the Ethereum chain with the ZK rollups. That was extremely important. Not saying that other chains weren't secure. I'm just sort of talking to what was sort of our driver for doing that. Very secure, very simple for us to use. Focused within, one of the leading areas for us, which was gaming, and a willingness to be a true partner with us as we go through this. And then I would say fifth is that, to touch on what Robbie mentioned, is that we weren't interested in doing one drop and that being it. We wanted to create a sort of ecosystem, which, while we're building this game that we have coming up next, we're actually doing something else that's going to be around some of the other programming that we have on air. And we wanted a partner that was going to be there as we do multiple things at the same time, so that we can build a robust ecosystem.
And Yang, can we spill some tea for anyone watching on the game and what the plans for this project with Immutable is?
I can't name exactly who we're partnering with, but what I can tell you is that, they can go take a look at Turner Sports and all of the leagues and, sports that we are engaged with. It's one of our, top-notch, partners that we work with. We are putting a significant amount of effort around this, that we want to launch a, top-notch game with this partner next year. And you will start to see, hopefully by the end of this year, some of the things that we'll start to roll out with them. And, the partner also has, obviously live experiences that a lot of their fans are super excited about. So we are just as excited about being able to announce them, and we hope to do that, hope to be able to do that soon.
You're obviously deep in this ecosystem, Yang, but you also very much have your foot in the quote unquote real world, and Turner has a massive foot in the real world. From your perspective, what are the advancements you really would like to see, whether it's on the platform side or within the technology, that you think would make it go a long way at getting mainstream adoption?
I think, so I like to work back from sort of the customer standpoint, from our fan standpoint. And where I want to be with them is that I want to get over the fear of NFTs. I want to get over the sort of concern, the environmental concern, which I'm happy to say that what Immutable has done is answering that call.
And we're about to get proof of stake, baby. We're like a month out.
Right.
This is like a non-issue in like 30 days.
That's right. But in addition to that, I want us to get, as an industry, past the feeling of, scams, and real utility. And the way that I think that happens is, one, us hopefully building great projects that people enjoy and love to be engaged with. But the other is making it as seamless as possible for, Web 2 noobs or whatever to come in. And that means, less on the wallets, focus, less on, the, the even using NFTs as a way to talk, really just speaking in a language that is, what is this game that you have coming out? Great, I want to play it. That's fun. Let me do that. Oh, that asset that I have, that digital asset, can I sell it to someone else? Sure, you can. That's the kind of language that we talk every day, rather than, is that an ERC20 or an ERC, that's just not, where, so once we get past that hurdle, I think we get to a wider audience. And then what will be, it's showing itself particularly, and I'll talk from a larger organization and someone that's pushing this through in a time when the market is a little softer now in sort of the crypto winter where we are, is that people get past the idea of, hey, I'm buying this because I'm flipping it. You're buying it because you're getting engaged to something that you really like to do. It's fun. It has value. You're adding value, as we mentioned earlier. And it's, it's a place where you want to go and bring other friends, not because you want to sell them what you have, but because you want to participate with them in this ecosystem. And that will take us a long way from, answering these questions about, is this sustainable? Is this real? And, get us over crossing the chasm, if you would.
When Robbie was saying earlier, they're strategic about their partnerships because they don't want sort of short-term volume PFP things. I was like, all right, I think that's the right decision. It sounds good and it sounds lofty, but could you make the business case either way? And hearing what you just said, Yang, to me almost reaffirms that decision on your part, Robbie, because it sort of ensures that you're not partnering with anything that's even going to be perceived as a scam or a rug or something, because you have this sort of premium feel to IMX that then attracts the really awesome partners. So that's interesting.
And look, we think we will get there. We have, there in this sort of winter, we have to do the reassurance with some folks that are, that are not as deeply engaged in the space, and we've been able to do that, and we have great backing within our organization to pursue it. And we think we're going to be able to not only build new experiences, but also support our leagues in terms of building out where we think the next opportunity will lie.
Bear market be damned.
Yeah, when will we find out about the details in the game?
I know. Look, I'm chomping at the bit too. So I think soon, very soon, I'll tell you what, keep listening to this podcast. You guys every week, we'll get to know you guys. The listeners will get to hear it and see it.
A great plug. Well done, Yang. Glad we decided to bring you on. Every other week, we should say. Well, awesome. Yang, this was a blast. We will certainly have you back on, I'm sure, at some point to track the progress here. I really think you just are leading the space so tremendously. Robbie, as always, so much fun chatting with you.
Thanks, Yang. Thanks, Carly.
Appreciate it. Mint my PO app. Get me going.